What U.S. soldiers faced in the war against ISIS, untold reality. In modern American history, few conflicts were as confusing, distant, and emotionally heavy as the fight against ISIS. For many viewers at home, the war appeared on screens as short clips, maps, and official statements. But for the men and women sent into that battlefield, it was something entirely different, unpredictable, isolating, and psychologically exhausting. This was not a conventional war with clear front lines or visible enemies. It was a struggle fought in ruined cities, empty deserts, and villages where danger could be hidden behind silence. American soldiers entered an environment where trust was fragile, time moved slowly, and every decision carried weight. Tonight, we take a closer look at what that war truly demanded from U.S. forces, not through slogans or headlines, but through the reality of daily pressure, constant uncertainty, and the human cost that followed them long after the mission ended. Stay with us until the end, because this story is not just about a battlefield, it's about what war leaves behind. ISIS did not fight like a traditional army. It avoided direct confrontations whenever possible and relied on unpredictability, blending into the environment and using psychological pressure as a core strategy. For U.S. troops, this meant that even the most routine tasks required absolute focus. A short patrol, a supply movement, or a security checkpoint could turn tense without warning. Nothing was ever fully predictable, and that constant ambiguity became one of the greatest challenges. Many soldiers described the mental strain as more exhausting than the physical demands. There were no truly quiet days. Even during periods of rest, the mind remained alert, trained to respond instantly to unfamiliar sounds or changes in routine. Sleep was often shallow and fragmented. Over weeks and months, this state of constant readiness wore down even the most disciplined individuals, creating fatigue that could not be solved by rest alone. The physical environment added another layer of complexity. Much of the operation took place in damaged urban areas, cities already weakened by years of instability. Streets were narrow, visibility was limited, and structures that once housed families had become empty shells. These conditions made movement slow and methodical. Every corner had to be treated with caution, every entry carefully planned. Civilians were often nearby, which demanded restraint and precision. American forces were trained not only to confront a hostile presence, but also to protect local communities and maintain legitimacy. This required calm judgment under pressure. Decisions had to be made quickly, yet the consequences of mistakes were severe. The burden of responsibility weighed heavily on those tasked with balancing mission objectives and human realities. Technology played a significant role in the campaign, but it did not remove danger. Surveillance systems, drones, and advanced communications provided valuable information, yet they were not substitutes for human judgment. Soldiers still had to move through uncertain terrain, rely on visual cues, and trust the instincts of their teammates. When technology failed or intelligence was incomplete, decisions fell squarely on those on the ground. Another defining feature of the conflict was its duration. There was no single moment that marked a clear beginning or end. Deployments rotated, but the mission continued. Many service members experienced the emotional strain of leaving family behind, returning briefly, and then preparing for the possibility of going back again. This cycle created a sense of suspended normality, where life felt divided into before, during, and after deployment. Over time, questions about long-term outcomes became unavoidable. Soldiers could see progress, areas stabilized, local forces trained, communities slowly rebuilding, but those gains often felt fragile. What was secured one month could face renewed instability the next. This uncertainty challenged morale and forced many to redefine success not as final victory, but as daily discipline and professionalism. Leadership within units became crucial. Commanders who emphasized communication, mental resilience, and mutual accountability helped their teams endure the pressure. Trust among soldiers was not optional, it was essential. Bonds formed under these conditions were intense, forged through shared responsibility and constant reliance on one another. These relationships often became the strongest source of stability in an unpredictable environment. The psychological impact did not end when deployments did. Many veterans spoke about the difficulty of transitioning back into civilian life. The shift from constant vigilance to ordinary routines felt unnatural. Sounds that once signaled potential danger could trigger sudden reactions. Silence, once rare, became uncomfortable. The body returned home, but the mind often took longer to follow. There was also a sense of disconnection. As public attention moved on to other events, those who had served felt that the complexity of the conflict was poorly understood. The war continued in quieter ways, but public awareness faded. This gap between lived experience and public perception became one of the lasting frustrations carried by many veterans. Despite these challenges, American forces adapted. Training evolved, tactics improved, and cooperation with local partners became more refined. Soldiers learned to operate in a conflict that demanded patience more than speed and judgment more than force. Their professionalism was not defined by dramatic moments, but by consistency, showing restraint, following procedure, and supporting one another under prolonged stress. What stands out most in examining this period is not just the operational difficulty, but the human cost. The campaign against ISIS required endurance on multiple levels: physical, mental, and emotional. It tested how long individuals could function under uncertainty, how they managed responsibility without clear resolution, and how they carried those experiences forward. This was a conflict fought largely out of public view, yet it shaped the lives of thousands who participated. Their story is not one of simple triumph or failure. It is a story of persistence in an environment where clarity was rare and pressure constant. Understanding that reality is essential to understanding the true nature of modern warfare. The war against ISIS did not end with a single moment of closure. For American soldiers, its effects unfolded over years, shaping how they saw the world and themselves. The battlefield may now feel distant to many viewers, but its lessons remain relevant. This conflict revealed the limits of technology, the weight of prolonged uncertainty, and the human cost of modern warfare. It showed that strength is not only measured by force, but by resilience, discipline, and the ability to carry responsibility under pressure. As we reflect on this chapter, it's important to remember that behind every policy decision and military briefing are real people who bear the consequences long after headlines fade. If you found this documentary valuable, take a moment to reflect, share your thoughts, and stay connected. Understanding these stories is one small way to honor the realities faced by those sent into the world's most difficult conflicts.